A jury, as you know, that's the group of citizens that gets called for jury duty, sits in a courtroom, listens to all the evidence and the witnesses as laid out for them in the course of a trial. Right? There's a trial judge who keeps everything on the straight and narrow, keeps everything running according to the rules, sort of guides the jury as to the basis on which the jury should make their decision. But then the jury decides amongst themselves, basically, which side won the trial. The jury issues their verdict. That's a jury. A grand jury is a different thing altogether. Boy, would it have avoided a lot of non-lawyer confusion over time if they had come up with a very different term for it. But a grand jury is another group of regular citizens who get called for jury duty, in this case, grand jury duty. But as part of a grand jury, they don't sit there and watch a trial unfold. A grand jury sits there and watches a prosecutor and looks at evidence and listens to witnesses who answer questions. And the grand jury's decision at the end of the day is not which side won the trial. They're not watching a trial. The grand jury's decision at the end of the day is whether or not a person is going to get charged with a crime, whether an indictment is going to be issued so a defendant can face criminal trial. That's what a grand jury does. And a regular grand jury, one called by state prosecutors in New York, they usually sit for about 4 weeks. They sit for about 4 weeks. They are convened 1 or maybe 2 days per week for 4 weeks. And, any charges that state prosecutors want to bring against anybody during that time, any indictments they want to seek, they bring that evidence and those witnesses to the grand jury. And the grand jury, under the normal course of events in New York, they meet over the course of 4 weeks. They take case after case after case, one after the other, making a decision in each instance as to whether a person is going to be indicted, whether criminal charges are going to be issued. Well, in this new reporting about potential criminal charges for former President Trump, they're talking about a variation on that grand jury structure. It's what they call an extra grand jury or a special grand jury. The Washington Post's initial report tonight says that the special grand jury in the Trump case will be convened to meet not for the usual 4 weeks, but for 6 months. And this special grand jury is not going to meet 1 day a week, maybe 2 days a week. They are going to meet 3 days a week for a solid 6 months. And this is, again, reportedly an extra grand jury. This is a special grand jury that is being convened on top of the usual grand jury that's in session in the normal course of events in the New York State legal system. That special status, this unusually intense and long-running commitment that they've asked these grand jurors to make, why is that? Why is this being handled by a special grand jury that's meeting so much more intensely than a normal grand jury? Again, I don't know, neither do you, and anybody who tells you they do know for sure is not being straight with you. Grand jury proceedings are secret. And, they're considering whether or not people are going to be criminally charged. Those deliberations and everything that happens in the grand jury room has to be secret as a basic tenet of fairness, because if at the end of those proceedings, the grand jury decides somebody shouldn't be charged, they should not be charged, that criminal charges shouldn't be brought, it would be very unfair for everything that happened in the grand jury room to be dragged out into the public eye, right? A person didn't get charged, then they should not have aspersions cast on them by people knowing they were the subject of the grand jury process. You either get charged or you don't. It is secret what happens in that room. Prosecutors lay out their case against a person once they indict them and charge them. That's the part of the case. That's the public part of the case. Grand jury proceedings are secret. We don't exactly know what's going on there. And we don't know exactly what's going on with this special grand jury that has been convened to hear the case related to Trump. The Washington Post does say in its reporting tonight that the special grand jury isn't hearing Trump-related stuff alone. They're also handling some other matters, some other cases. So who knows? But it is unusual to have a special grand jury meeting this intensely. And the speculation is that these New York State prosecutors want this special grand jury available to work with unusual intensity, 3 days a week for an unusually long period of time, 6 months, because they're asking this grand jury to consider a particularly complex or otherwise intense set of decisions about whether or not former President Trump and other people in his orbit are going to be indicted.